At 6 o'clock, I call this meeting to order. Hello, John, could you lead us in the pledge now?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As usual, we'll first approve minutes of prior meetings, the earliest of which is December 14th. Work session minutes. We have a motion to approve those
So moved.
Second.
by John and Neil. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Presuming there's no discussion. And then our regular select board meeting minutes of December 14th.
Second.
By Bill and Neil. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then we have a December 14th non-public work session minutes.
I move that we approve the meetings of December 14th, non-public.
By Neil, second by
Second.
John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then I have the December 21st work session minutes.
I move to accept those as written.
All right,
Second.
by Bill and John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And finally, January 4th, we had a budget committee / bond work session, and those minutes are also here.
I move that we approve the minutes of the January 4th Budget Committee Bond Work Session.
And we have a second by Neil and seconded by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have the usual announcements, which are that we will meet at our first budget public hearing on Monday, January 25th. Our second budget public hearing, if needed, and also for the purpose of reading any petitioned warrant articles, that meeting will be held February 4th. Regular meetings are at 6 o'clock, Monday, January 25th, February 8th, and February 22nd. And the work review sessions prior to each of those regular meetings starts at 5. All to be held in the town hall. Weather observations for December are available in the town hall. If you'd like to be listed on the agenda, please notify the town hall before noon the Friday prior to the meeting. And also note that the town offices will be closed in observance of Martin Luther King Day on January 18th, a week from today. I have no comments. We have a request from Eugene Thurston to be appointed as a member of the planning board. And Mr. Thurston has written a letter to Sharon Penny, which says, "I am interested in becoming a member of the Plymouth Planning Board and ask that you consider me for the current open seat. I have been a citizen of the town of Plymouth for nearly 5 years, though I've lived in New Hampshire or Vermont my entire life, with the exception of my service in the U.S. Army. It is my desire to become a more active member of my community. As an interested member of the community with deepening roots in the town of Plymouth, I would like to volunteer my time, efforts, and talents to help promote a strong and vibrant future for Plymouth. Though I have not been involved in town management / planning before, I have experience in both the workplace and academia that I believe will allow me to be a beneficial member of the planning board. I respectfully ask for your consideration in being appointed to a position on the planning board. I'd be happy to provide a copy of my resume or answer any questions you may have. Thank you. Eugene Thurston." Does anyone want to make a motion to appoint Mr. Thurston to the planning board?
I move that we appoint Eugene Thurston to the Planning Board.
And we have a second.
Second.
So by Neil, and I'll take, I think John was first. You can have the next one.
I'll vote for a second.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thurston's here, he
Oh, wonderful.
This evening, so I don't know if you
Well, would you like
do
to,
a facial recognition or some few questions or.
does anyone have any, well, why don't you come up here for a minute, Mr. Thurston? I guess you've told us, essentially why you want to be planning board, anything, want to be on the planning board, anything you'd want to add to that?
No, that was it. I'm interested in being involved in the town of Plymouth. I've really enjoyed my time here the last 5 years, and I have a lot of friends and family here.
Are
I'd
you
just like
out
to help out.
in the Tenny Mountain area?
Yes, I live on Tenny Mountain.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Thurston? Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say about Mr. Thurston that's complimentary? Yes, sir.
I'd speak. I know Mr. Thurston briefly in my time here. I think he'd be a good candidate. I was a member of a planning board in Bradford, New Hampshire for about 10 years, and from what I know, I think he'd be a good candidate.
So you brought your cheering section.
No, I'm here for a separate reason. Is this is an appointment until the is this to fulfill the end of the term or until the next
sure.
election?
I believe it's a 3-year appointment. This will finally fulfill our complement of planning board members. We will have a full board involvement at this point, so it is a 3-year appointment.
All right. Did we had a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments from anybody? If not, all those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Aye. Sounds like you got a unanimous vote.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Welcome
thank
to
you.
the
Welcome
planning
aboard.
board. Yep, thank you for being involved. So I think we can, we have, I have an original of that somewhere.
It's right there.
Well, there's one here, but, oh yeah, it says sign here, doesn't it? Okay. Oh, that's the copy. Bill's my helper. So it's the 11th day. January. Sign that.
Thanks.
And the next item on our agenda here is correspondence. We have a letter from Philip Lamoureux regarding street lighting. Any chance Mr. Lamoureux is here? Oh, that's you. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll read your letter, just like I did with Mr. Thurston's. So this is a letter from Mr., did I pronounce your name? Lamoureux? Reasonably well. I am writing to request the removal of a street light at 7 Hilltop Drive. The light was installed approximately a year ago, and the utility pole on our property was replaced in conjunction with an electric service upgrade. Prior to that, a non-functioning light had been in place since we purchased the property in August 2014. Based on discussion with neighbors, I understand this light did not function for many years, if not decades. I have consulted with both neighbors who own a budding property within sight of the light. Neither Stephen DeVoid nor Derek and Rachel Royer objected to my proposal to request the removal of the light. In fact, one offered a complaint that the light was negatively affecting the view from their property. I believe that street lighting is necessary and appropriate in certain cases, including intersections and areas of pedestrian traffic. This light is not illuminating either of these situations, but is casting unwanted light into and around our home. Thank you for your consideration of this request and for your service to the town. Well, there we go. Sincerely, Philip Lamoureux. So you've said what you wanted to say too, probably, but you could come up if you'd like.
I did. I don't have much to say. I do understand the importance of street lighting. I also think that street lighting should be used where it's appropriate. And this, if you're not familiar with Hilltop, it's kind of the loop that goes up from
Yeah.
Pleasant to Maple. There's very little through traffic. I find that most of the neighbors either go down Maple or back down Pleasant. On occasion, there are people that walk through, but rarely in the evening when it's dark.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that anybody would be negatively affected by the removal. And honestly, from what I understand, I mean, the fixture that was there and not working
I don't think anybody had complained that it wasn't working. It's just that they replaced it when they did the pole upgrade.
You know, we've been replacing
Yeah.
the lights with LEDs, and we're planning to do the whole town before, what's that?
I'm familiar.
Well, what do you mean?
Oh, I work at the electric co-op, and
Oh, I see,
I had a
okay.
conversation with the with kind of our lighting, town lighting guy.
With
and-
Bill?
Yeah,
or-
with Bill Johnstone. But I understand the decision
but I
on
just-
where to place lighting is up to the select.
Oh, yeah, but I was just wondering if that would make a difference depending on how it's, you know, focused, or how it's
I
oriented.
think most of the light we get is actually reflecting off the street. You know, there probably is an increase in the amount of reflected light off the street over what would have been there from the older lighting.
Mhm.
You know, it's not shining directly, and it is shielded. It happens to be a little bit below,
Mhm.
even on the utility pole, it's a little bit below, but we get a lot of light that reflects off certain things, and it happens to wash through the gable end window of our home, which is right where our bedroom is, and we see it at night. That's, you know, it's, if it needs to be there for safety purposes, we're flexible, but if the board can determine that it's not necessary, I mean, it's one less light in town.
I see Mr. Freitas raising his hand over here.
Do you have the ability and capabilities of having it turned off at no cost to the town?
I believe the town can have it requested to be removed. I think it's up to you to determine where you have
At a cost.
streetlights. Well,
Yeah.
is it a cost to remove?
Yeah.
But it's a cost to operate too. Right?
It is.
Yeah. We're lucky enough to have the police chief here, and on these
You
questions
may have
of
opinions on safety.
Well,
lighting.
I think that the board knows my stance on street lighting. I never, ever want to get rid of any of them, just because it makes it much easier for me and my staff to patrol areas like that. The specific area he's talking about, like he said, that my only concern is there is a sharp corner there, sharp curve. However, as he stated, there isn't much traffic that actually goes up there to begin with.
And actually, if you're familiar, as you go up the hill, the light is actually beyond the crest of the hill, so as you're going up, it's actually in your face a little bit, and it would obscure vehicle headlights that would be coming over the hill the other way. So in my mind, it makes it ambiguous as to if there's traffic coming or not. Whereas if it were darker, you'd know it's headlights. And the light is actually kind of in between the crest of a hill and a corner where it doesn't really illuminate either of them.
Mr. Chair, the bottom line is, I don't think it's a big deal. to
I
shut the light
didn't
off.
mean to interrupt
Okay,
you.
no worries. I don't think it would be any big deal to shut the light off if that's what all the neighbors up there really want.
Yeah. Now, is there anybody there, you said there were two abutters, are they on either side of you?
Mr. Boyd is down the hill, and then the Royers are on the inside corner of Maple
I guess
Street.
what I really meant to ask is if there's anyone else there who might have an opinion about
I
this.
don't believe there is, honestly. I think, you know, the next house down the hill is, drawing a blank on the
Well,
name, on the corner. and
Is
they
it a
have-
ways away, though?
Yeah, it's on the corner of Maple, and they actually have a street light on that corner. So, you know, this wouldn't, if anything, if you drive up there, it's just kind of a bright beacon through the woods. It doesn't really affect many
Is this
people.
something we need to vote on, do you think, or?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
What's the cost involved anyway? To
Yeah, we
remove?
should probably find out what it would, I mean, we pay like $18 a month per light, right? Something like that. So,
You know, it's the kind of thing where I know that the utility company has to come back to remove the old pole at some point. You know, if you wanted to let them know that they could remove it when they pull the
When
old
they're
pole,
there
that would be
anyway.
fine too. You know, it really doesn't.
maybe we could talk to Bill about that. Yes, well, speaking of Bill,
I'd ask the question,
Mhm.
is the utility paying for that street light? Or is the prior homeowner set a precedent of having the light installed and was paying for it? I know we have in our subdivision one street light, but it's being paid for by the abutter, and the installation was made at the abutter's request. Back in the early 90s, that was a policy of the town, if you wanted a street light in the vicinity of your home.
It's not on our electric bill, which makes me think it's on the town's bill.
well, we could check that, of course. I mean, we have an inventory of streetlights, and it would be easy enough to look at the number and see if we're being billed for it. But most of those, you know, this is not a newer subdivision, so I'm thinking it's, you know, it's on an old road, and it would make sense that it was,
Yeah.
Oh, 1 minute till,
And the
I'm sorry,
gentleman
yeah.
said it doesn't make any sense where it is, other than to have been probably requested by the former owner.
Well, maybe we could, how about something to the effect of voting to look into what it would cost to have it turned off, and depending on what the answer is, we can make a decision. Is that okay?
If you want to table it, that's fine with me. I just wanted to be here to answer questions. If you want to, I trust you to deal with it as
Yeah.
you see fit.
All right,
But
all right,
thank
let's
you.
do that. We got to do our,
We'll look into it.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
6:15, is it 6:15, I think?
Yes.
So it's time for our public hearing, and I just thought I would, for the benefit of the folks who are watching at home, I'm going to read what we put on our agenda for this. We have a public hearing to address the following pursuant to NHRSA Chapter 33, to discuss a bond article that will appear in the 2015 town warrant. The bond article seeks authorization for the Select Board to pursue a $2 million bond for the purpose of work to be completed for public facilities for the construction, reconstruction, alteration, and enlargement or purchase of public buildings, for other public works or improvements of a permanent nature. Maybe there's a comma there, for the purchase of departmental equipment of a lasting character. This bond shall not include funds to provide for the payment of expenses for current maintenance and operation except as otherwise specifically provided by law. That's what we have in our agenda. We also, our good folks at our town hall, Kathy and Ann and Paul, have helped us produce a small brochure which was handed out tonight and which will be available in the town office for the foreseeable future concerning this, in which we attempt to explain generally what the idea of this is, the concept, and then on the other side, a sort of general list of what it is that we would like to accomplish with this. Sort of a summary of what's gone on here is that we, the Select Board here, and the town management has sought for several years, 7 or 8 years now, to level fund the budget, which we have done successfully, but all the time we were deferring some of our maintenance and improvement activities that we really need to take care of, and we've said for several years that we were going to have to do something about them at some point. So it's come to pass that we feel that the economy's improved some, that interest rates are very low, and that this would be a good time for us to pursue some of these repairs, maintenance items, and improvements that we haven't been able to make in the past years. I'd like to just point out that Paul and Kathy and Ann have all spent a lot of time on this. It's difficult with DRA. It's difficult putting together the things that we would like to accomplish and to prioritize them. The list is not necessarily complete or extraordinarily detailed, but we want to give everybody an idea about what it is we're trying to accomplish here, and so that's really what the purpose of this brochure is. So you'll see if you look at this that we've, I guess I've said this twice already, summarized the things that we would like to accomplish, and we have our departmental managers here tonight to give us a little bit more of a presentation on what it is that they would do if this money were made available to them, if the town saw fit to approve this this loan. And so I didn't see Joe, did I? Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. So Joe, fortunately or unfortunately for you, highway is the first item on the thing. So I thought maybe it would be nice if you could give us an idea of what you would do with nearly...
Yes, sure.
Yeah, if you could stand up there, that'd be great. So the proposal here is that highway be given $925,000, and that's about half of the money we're talking about here. That's the biggest chunk. And one of the things we've been talking about for years, probably the main thing we've been talking about for years, or the biggest thing, is road improvements. that have been neglected some. So maybe you could give us a summary of what you would do with $925,000.
Well, regardless of this bond, we have things that we were, had in the works, like building repairs and groundworks. Had a lot of vandalism, so we're trying to put a fence around our establishment. And our roof, working on, we've been a couple of years trying to get the money to put a roof on our shed. And,
What do we have for road issues?
road issues, it used to be just the back country. You know, you think about it and you go, wow, the back country's failing.
Yeah.
Well, we're beyond that point. It's reached in town. So a lot of your infrastructure, the old clay pipes are failing. So we can't just go pave a road in town and make it look nice anymore. We have to address the underneath part of it. So when you meet that criteria, starting from the bottom up, you're 3 times what it costs to pave a road.
So can you give us a couple examples of roads that type of work ought to be completed on? Can you?
Well, we just did the infrastructure on Langdon Street, and that was $130,000, which is my whole last year's budget for road work.
So, yeah, if I understand this right, you get about the routine has been to put 125,000 or so in the budget for road work.
It was over that amount just to do the underneath infrastructure. So this year, if we go with just our regular budget, it's gonna cost me that same amount just to pave it. So it's taking me 2 years to do that one piece of road.
All right, so you see, if things stay the same, that $1.25 this year or next year will go into finishing Langdon Street. Is that?
Correct.
And but can you tell us about a couple other roads that really need to be fixed from the drains up, that you would tackle if you had the money to do it?
Reservoir's one of them. There's a lot of failed culverts. And we're losing the sides of the roads. The water issues are huge out there, and we can't control them. So we're looking to replace culverts and upsize them. And so, in doing so, then you need to pave it. So there's some other roads out there. We spent the whole summer replacing culverts on clay on. The ledge side, and so now that's ready to pave, but the whole road's failed, so I have to grind it first.
All right, so that's ledge side is one, and that's one that's on your list
Yeah,
here.
so that's on the list.
And
Avery Street, there's a lot of issues there. Foot traffic, we put it on hold. We wanted to pave it, but we didn't get a grant to put the sidewalk, so now I'm faced with paving it.
Now, is that one that if you pave it, you should dig it up and fix the drainage and that sort of thing, or is that just a pave?
I think that one relatively simple, but still doesn't give us the sidewalk. But we need that straightened out, so like your ambulances can get to the hospital without rattling up and down the road.
Yeah. All right, so it's Avery is one, and you've got Langdon we already talked about. Claybrook we talked about to some extent, I think. That's something that you
Emerson's
started.
on the list, but that's in the same situation that Langdon Street is right now. There's a lot of underground issues, and I haven't had a chance to. We rented a camera for Langdon Street so we could actually visually see it. And we did a bunch of other streets, but that one didn't get done. So there's a push to do Emerson, so before I pave it, we're gonna have to.
You're gonna have to take the camera and take a look and see what
Correct.
you've got underneath, but you don't.
Because if
really
you
know
go,
at this point.
it's all clay pipe, and if you go halfway, in theory, the water's supposed to go all the way down to Merrill Street, but the water's flowing and it gets down to High Street and then it goes nowhere. So we don't even know where the water's going.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah. And then you've got a few, it looks like maybe more sort of wish list items here, which are paving reservoir and replacement of drainage on Texas Hill and reservoirs. Are those less critical in your mind, but something that should be done?
No, I just take them as priority, because by the time this money becomes available, there could be a crisis, or, every day we have failures. So we just take them
Yeah.
one at a time and try to take the most critical ones.
Sometimes the planning ahead is difficult because you don't know when something else
Right,
is
but I
going
mean,
to come up.
with that kind of money, we can definitely be ahead of the game in a forward motion.
You had a major failure on Merrill Street Hill this
Correct.
last year. How much did that cost?
Well, that's been visited, that was the third time it was visited. We've done 2 repairs. And so when the college put drainage in on Week Street, it was a perfect opportunity to repair it right, because all that drainage turned and came down Merrill Street. So it was over like 50,000.
You didn't plan on that, really.
No, it wasn't planned, but it was the time to fix it. Because you have to start at the bottom and work up, so that's part of the problem with all of this. If you don't start in town and work out, because the water runs downhill.
Yeah.
So you have to start at the bottom and work out.
Okay. Anybody have any?
Bell Road has some serious stormwater issues.
Right.
That road could get taken out by a big storm, couldn't it?
Yep. Well, we're working on that. We spent a good share of our budget out there, gravel and grading, just to try to keep that up. So we're, a lot of those, Old Haven's the same way. There's a lot of runoff in the spring, trying to keep the roads from
Yeah, do you
washing.
want to, yes, Paul?
Just to clarify for the public on Bell Road, this includes matching funds that would repair all of Bell Road in 2 phases. We've got grant money for Bell Road.
All right, anybody else? Anything else, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, you got sidewalks on here too, and there are several that should be addressed, but we haven't really addressed most of them, only because our roads. So
Come first.
when we're doing this, we try to address the sidewalks at the same time if we're in that area.
Sure.
So with that kind of money, we could definitely make it a joint venture between the sidewalks and
Yep,
the roads.
okay. That's good, I
Fire
think.
department?
Yep. So, Tom,
Any
Mr., do you want to let these guys just outline it first, and then we'll open it up to anybody that, did
Chair,
you want to?
that's how it has to be. You either have to have a public session and then open it up to the public, or your explanation first.
Will you stay, Joe, in case Bill or anyone else has
All
a
department.
question for you? Okay, Bill? Tom, Casino's here, I'm sorry, somebody else I didn't see, sorry. Saw Tom come in. Chief? So, same idea.
Yep. I'll just go down to the list that the
Sure.
public has so that they can see it. If this money was available, one of the first things it says is the fire department sport vehicle.
Yep,
What that would be is to replace the second vehicle that currently the deputy uses, probably 90% of the time. That vehicle also goes down to Concord when full-time staff or part-timers have classes. They'll use that vehicle to go back and forth with that. The current condition of that one, it's baling wire. It's being held together. It probably will not pass another inspection due to the frame. It is in the CIP to replace it, but as we talk, trying to keep this level funded budget, I was asked to look at a used vehicle. So if these funds were available, because when the fire department buys a new vehicle, typically we'll get between 12 and 15 years out of it. We get a second-hand vehicle, we've found in the past that sometimes we've picked up somebody else's trouble. So as soon as we get it, there's typically no warranty with a used vehicle. And then if it's earmarked as an emergency vehicle, some warranties will not cover it right out of the gate. So we would prefer to buy a new one to get the longer life out of it, because it is being used as an emergency vehicle, not just something to go back and forth to get groceries and so forth. So for that money, that's where part of that money would go, and that's why that vehicle is there. Replacement of the air packs. We currently just finished up doing a grant to hopefully fund this. With these funds, you have to have the matching funds. I believe it's a reimbursement thing. The air packs that we have, we've upgraded them. They're about 2 cycles out. So the
What does that
regulations.
mean, 2 cycles out?
Every time they change the rules and regulations, they go through NFPA cycles.
Yep.
And in order to even apply for this grant, realistically, you gotta prove that the air packs that you're currently using or above are beyond those cycles, which is typically right around 10 years old.
And yours are more than that?
Because yes, the research has found that the main components are, like I said, we've in the past upgraded certain pieces of it, but it is time just to redo it. But that's about a $200,000, equipment change out. So going for the grant, but trying to stay true to keeping it level funded. We talked about what can we do to replace it so it's not such a huge burden on the taxpayers. It was one, go for a grant. First of all, the bottles are coming due. So we got a capital improvement line to replace all the bottles. That's 40 bottles. Once that was done, then we were gonna start replacing the packs themselves throughout the course of a few years to try to keep the budget at a manageable level for the taxpayers. The best thing for us is that this money comes available and we don't get the grant, we pay for the air packs with the grant, with the bond money. The grant comes available, we get it, we've got the matching funds, it gets reimbursed.
Okay.
So that's where, the defibrillator, that's what we use to jumpstart someone's heart. We have one that's top of the line, which is called the 1500. The other one that we would like to get with the grant money, it has a few more bells and whistles on it. It's the latest and greatest, and the guys in the back could actually send a 12-lead EKG to the hospital, and there's some other features along with it that would get technical, and the guys on the run it know it better than I do. But it would be just upgrading that system for the second ambulance to be more paired with our primary ambulance. Repair to the apron. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but there's quite a few waves because the weight of the vehicle's going in and out for all the years. And now
I'm sorry, Chief, the apron is the concrete around the building?
it's the pavement in front of the
In front of the
vehicles.
building, yeah.
We're starting to see a lot of settling, which in my 26 years there, we've patched it, we've done this before. It's time to do it again, because one of the trucks as it sits, it's like, boy, if that doesn't come back up, we're gonna actually run into the station. With that is, with the old driveway for the house that we acquired, it dips down, water runs into that basement, plus the hydrant is in a bad location. So we wanna build a retaining wall, get that more level, provide parking for the staff, which would alleviate some parking issues over where the general public comes in, and move the hydrant before somebody hits it and we wind up paying for that. That wouldn't be a good thing. So that project would be a repaving, surfacing of in front of the bays, and then do the retaining wall and continue that right over to the other, along with leaving a little ramp so we could still utilize the space in the garage underneath. Radio replacement, there again, everything's got a life expectancy. All the radios in the fire trucks, they work fine. They can do it, but if they break, Motorola doesn't support that brand of radio anymore. So if it breaks, then it's about $4,000 for a new radio. So there again, to replace all of them at once is a decent cost. But there again, we're looking at if this money's available, we can do it now and get it done. Do I think all of them are gonna break at once? No, but then that could be, a $4,000 shot in this operating budget, and then if another one goes down, we need communications in the rigs. What we've been doing is replacing them as we change out this last ambulance, we actually took the radio from the old ambulance and put it in due to the cost. And there's also grants that we'd be going for there, but there again, it's a match, it's not a guarantee. This money doesn't mean that we would not go for grants.
Do you have to have the money available to make the
I believe-
purchase in order to apply for the grant?
It's a reimbursement, so we're able to move things around and say that we have it, we covered it, but we overexpend some lines, and then they come back in, which is the way I understand we've been doing it in the
Yes.
past,
The answer is yes.
Yeah, okay.
so.
And then what about building, your final item there?
The final is the fire station repairs and upgrades. Seems like every time we take one step, the contractors find more stuff. If money allows, what we would like to do is that front office space. Try to design something that flows good, provides a nice entryway and security for the secretary. That current bathroom is really in the worst spot possible for that. So we would like to move that, open that entire space up and create, an entryway and 2 nice offices with room for the filing cabinets and everything else that we need. Along with that, on the front of the building, the brick facade, for years we've been watching different cracks appear, and just early this fall, we noticed underneath, it almost looks like we got an issue with one of the footings starting to give way. It was looked at, and we didn't have an actual engineer, but somebody that's in the business said, watch it. It's not gonna fall on anybody right now, but it is something that does, is down the future is gonna have to be looked at. That's another thing that this money would go to ensure that, one, it doesn't fall over, and if it needs to be repaired, that we have the money to repair it. Doesn't mean we're not gonna look at it if the money doesn't come available, but it's just one of those things that keeps getting put back.
Yeah, okay.
So.
All right, any questions for the chief from the board? All right, thank you, chief, appreciate it.
I'll hang around.
Ernie? Are you, Jeremy?
Jesse,
Or Jesse, I'm sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm
for
sorry.
all who don't know me, my name's Jesse.
Yeah.
I'm one of the co-supervisors with Ernie.
So you don't need anything, your place is spick and span, sparkly, right?
Right.
Would you like to tell us what needs to be done at the recycling center to bring it up to par?
Our biggest request is the roof on the lower building. I have no idea when the last time it was replaced. I did go up there, and I could see that there has been significant wear to that lower roof. So it needs to be replaced.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I'm requesting $60,000 to replace it, with the addition of some other minor building repairs.
okay. Did, you have some other, you've got this list here.
Yes, I
Did you
do.
want to just tell us, you can make it really brief, and these other things don't appear to be really big items, but can you kind of just summarize what they're about?
Yes, sir. We're also requesting $20,000 for a used truck to replace our F-250 that's currently being worked on. We use it to remove trash from the town and the other buildings, other departments in town. I spoke with the mechanic that usually works on our vehicles. Most likely it won't pass inspection, the next inspection. There's quite a bit of significant rust. Like I said, currently it's in the shop. It has a leaky clutch slave. It's a hydraulic clutch. I spoke with him. This could possibly be either the 3rd or 4th time we tried to fix it and repair it. Also in 2014, we had a couple of repairs on it. We had a brake line actually rusted through, and the parking brake cable had to be replaced. In 2008, we had a really big repair on it between the starter. We had an engine oil leak, and the emergency brake had to be repaired.
How old is that truck?
It's 20 years. It's 1996.
And, okay, why don't you go
With that,
there?
we're asking for a truck cap, price of around $2,000. It, keeps the trash contained inside the bed of the truck, so debris does not fly into the road. Also protects it from the weather, so that way we're not sending more weight to the landfill, costing the town more money.
Yeah.
An $8,000 40-foot container. The two trailers that, out of the 5 that we're currently using right now, 2 of them are not structurally sound. The support beams on top have, some of them gave way. We have holes on the ceiling of those and actually on the floor of those. So we're asking to get rid of them and then replace at least one of the 2. A can conveyor with modifications. Right now, we are actually using a piece of equipment that's been there for quite some time, and being there for quite some time, it's received damage from use, and it's actually used to be a manure spreader, and it was modified to actually with a magnetic roller on top to separate aluminum cans.
Who modified it?
Paul did.
That's what I thought.
Ingenuity.
Yeah, there aren't that many people that can take a manure spreader and make it into an aluminum separator
Separator.
from tin, yeah. I don't know how that works, but, all right.
I'll just go back real quick. The 40-foot container is actually grant applicable. We would go either through the NRA or New Hampshire DES for those grants. The compactor, the machine that we actually put our trash in and put it into a container, the feed throat that we have on it has received quite a bit of damage just over the years of use, and we just need to replace some sections and repair other sections for about $7,000. The LED overhead lights, the lighting that we have in the upper building, they're not very adequate. They don't light the inside very well, and if we put LED lighting inside, obviously everything's going to be brighter and it's safer. With that, that's also grant applicable, and it actually lowers our electricity cost over the months.
Okay.
The concrete pads that the actual trash container sits on, those have actually had grooves in them now from having the container just roll into the compactor, and we are now either putting metal plates or wooden boards to actually lift it up so it actually mates with our compactor. With that, on the adjacent side to it is a resting pad, so where they place the empty container, and that's actually got a couple holes in it, and I'd like to replace those.
Okay.
And I believe the final is a fascia board on the lower building. It's actually starting to separate from the building. We had a bid several years ago for $5,000. I'm just including the cost of the appreciation over the years.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's good.
Thank you, John.
Anything else?
Thank you.
And again, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, as with the other departments, it gives the recycling center a chance to pursue a grant.
Yep,
In this case, we'd be going after a used oil furnace, a second one. As you know, the furnace that's down there for used oil isn't to heat the building. It's actually to dispose of the oil. These gentlemen work in ambient temperatures, so it's just as cold downstairs as it is outside minus the wind chill. I think with a second furnace, which we would be able to get with a grant, we'd actually be able to gain some heat.
Oh, really?
So
So we would buy a furnace to burn waste
It's still
oil to
waste oil.
provide heat.
yeah, it's one of the few legal ways of disposing of your waste oil outside of paying to get rid of it. So there is one down there now that we got with a grant, and that's how we dispose of our oil. A second one may provide enough heat to heat the downstairs, to some degree.
Okay. All right. Chief? Good evening.
Evening.
So would you like to provide us a summary of your,
Sure, I'm not really going to go in order of the list on here because I kind of prioritized mine a bit in that the biggest thing we need at the police department is to be able to control the climate inside the building. It's bad in there. It's to the point where, excuse me, I've come in before it's been so cold in the police department that my administrative assistant has been trying to type on her computer wearing a pair of gloves. And we couldn't get her office up to even 50 degrees. To which, you know, you can't ask somebody to work in those conditions. I would have to send her home and whatnot. So and at any given day, on a cold day, there's upwards of probably 7 to 8 space heaters warming up the PD in various offices and spaces in the police department. So what I would do, the most important thing is we would strip the metal siding off of the exterior of the building. And those of you who don't know, we're doing an addition off the back of the PD right now. And when they stripped the metal siding off of that, there were some spots in between the metal studs where literally it was nothing but sheetrock, the metal stud, and then the exterior wall. So there is no insulation in there. So I would have them strip off the metal siding, spray foam the entire building, then put probably some vinyl siding back on the exterior to, you know, to help with that. I think maintenance, and then as many vehicles as we have run into the building, it seems weekly, it would be easy to replace the vinyl siding rather than having metal siding, which is dense.
these aren't police officers driving?
Some are, yes, some are police officers and some are members of the public, both. In all fairness, the police officers are running into the building as well. Also, I would have some insulation put up into the ceiling. Right now, 2 of our furnaces are up in the ceiling right now, and that's unconditioned space. And I believe if you were to build a new house by code, that wouldn't even be allowed nowadays because the furnace is trying to work in a cold environment to begin with and then heat up the entire police department. So that would have to be insulated up there. That would help the HVAC system out a little bit. And then also I would look at, we've had some luck that we have some offices in there that have some mini split systems, so it takes care of the air conditioning and heating needs. Those seem to be pretty efficient. We're very happy with those. I would look at doing several more offices with that system. And you should know, when I talked about the new addition off the back, if any of this, and I will be looking for grant money, if any of this we can, you know, offset some of the costs with it, I would obviously go for a grant and apply for that. That's the whole reason why we put the addition off the back of the police department, was because I got a grant to improve the dispatch center, and it was such a good grant that it afforded me the opportunity. There was money left over to be able to use towards a new addition off the back of the police department, which is going to be a new squad room and 2 sergeants' office in the back there.
You know, before you move on, could you just explain to people who may not know what you've done with the department, you know, with the building generally the last few years, and especially with dispatch?
Yeah, the dispatch center is actually, it's doubled in size now, which gives them a lot more room in there, because there are times where we need 2 dispatchers working at any Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. We have to have 2 dispatchers working because the call volume is so high that we need that. And it provided them a nice clean workspace. We've bumped out, the dispatchers can't leave their room, because if you have an emergency call, they got to be there. So there's a bathroom in there for them. We expanded that and moved that out into the lobby a little bit more, which gave them more room. Also part of the grant was these new ergonomic desks, and what those do is if a dispatcher wants to stand and dispatch, the whole dispatching desk will raise, or if they want to sit, they can sit. You know, because it's recommended that, you know, about every hour or so you should stand up anyway. So a lot of dispatchers will stand up for their whole 8-hour shift in dispatch there. That also included some rewiring of especially all the data cables in there, so everything's neat and clean. There aren't any wires where people can trip on. We've had it happen before. We've had people trip on wire and take down the entire dispatch center. So that's, everything's within the walls, and it's nice, clean, and neat working environment in there now. And that's what I'm hoping with the addition off the back. I want to provide that same working environment for the patrolmen.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Nope, no worries. And with the new addition on the back and everything else, other thing on the list is police furniture and replacement. Some of the desks and stuff in there are probably older than I am. Some of them are the old Army surplus metal desks and stuff. It's just not, to have somebody work at that, it's just not ergonomic, it's not comfortable. So I would like to replace that. Also, we don't have any good places to have a conference or a meeting, so we need like some conference tables, some meeting tables, some new chairs. Everything we have there is pretty much outdated. Replace the sign in the front. If anybody goes by the police department and looks at the sign, it's in disrepair. I think if you gave it a good shove, it would probably fall over right now. So we're hoping nobody runs into that with the car. Other thing, I'm in the same boat as the fire chief. A lot of our radio equipment, was purchased, what did we get a grant like 15 years ago for all that stuff? Motorola doesn't support it anymore. So therefore, if we have a radio that fails, we can't send it out for repair. We have to replace it. So I'm in the same exact boat as the fire chief is with that. The same to do with our repeater system, because obviously, we dispatch for 9 different towns now. So we have repeaters in the surrounding areas, so we can get our signal out to them. They can talk to them, we can talk to us, and so forth. So those would have to be updated and or replaced as well. Last thing on there I believe I have is our fire alarm system is completely antiquated. It's awful. We've had some zones that have been in some trouble for quite some time, and rather than trying to fix it, it just needs to be replaced. The whole thing needs to be brand new and replaced.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Any thoughts or questions? Larry's on his way up. I see. Mr. Gibson, thank you for coming.
My list is fairly small, but a lot of nagging projects that we need to complete and try to finish. The first couple are the walkway lights on the town common. They're currently not functioning at all, and we've tried to repair those, so we just need some new wiring, conduit, poles, fixtures, things like that. The electrical panels on the town common, those need to be upgraded and possibly be replaced. Some of the town street lights are currently on those panels, and I noticed that there are still a couple street lights that on the common side that aren't working, so I just think it's a question of breakers tripping and things like that, so we need to do some upgrade on those. A few dusk to dawn lights. We currently have one dusk to dawn light at Riverfront Park. I would like to add an additional dusk to dawn light for concerts and theater and programs that we offer down at the park. The current dusk to dawn light right now isn't functioning the way it should, and we just need to again upgrade that and make some changes and add an additional dusk to dawn light there. Same thing at Fox Pond Park. We have one dusk to dawn light up top. I would like to again upgrade that, and I would like to add an additional dusk to dawn light over by the large pavilion towards the edge of the pond. Currently, there's no lighting there at all, and it's hard to patrol, especially if the PD is patrolling from Texas Hill Road. You can't really see into the park and see what activities are taking place there. So, repairs to the ice rink, those are kind of minor. We need to regrade next year before we open up for the season. Some new topsoil. We need to roll and compact the new surface. It's just, for years, it's just, we don't use any plastic when we freeze the pond, and it just needs to be some upgrades. There's a lot of grass and things that grow, and we need to take care of that. The pond, there are some drainage issues, even though, I've been working with Joe on that, or we took a look at it last spring. The culverts, the drainage pipes and things like that, there's a lot of leaves that collect in there, and my guys have to walk out on the pipe with a rake and try to get the leaves away for the proper drainage and things like that. So that entire system we need to look at that. And then we need a new phone system. It's kind of outdated. We just because of the volume and the number of programs now that we offer, we might need a third line cancellation. We have no way of transferring calls. If somebody calls and wants to speak to one of the other staff members, we either have to leave them a message by writing it down and saying, please return the call. When we come in, we don't know if we have any calls other than picking up the phone, and there's a little beeping sound, and then each staff member has a 7-digit code that we got to plug into the system to find out if it's our messages. And then we go around and say, well, I don't have any messages, but you guys might have messages. So we just need to simplify that. I don't know how old the phone system's been there. Possibly adding a pen alert, which would be ideal for us too, that if we had to cancel programs on the weekend because of bad weather, things like that, now we got to call 70 people in the morning saying the program's been canceled, or Facebook, or again, the cancellation line. But, we just need to upgrade the system to get more current use. So, but that's basically what I've got.
Okay. Yes.
I hear there's a dusk to dawn lamp that might be available on Hilltop Drive.
If they take it down, I'll take it.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
The next one on here is the town hall. I think I could address that for starters. And one of the things that's been going on in the town hall for a long time is that the HVAC system really needs to be looked at. We've had at least a couple of energy studies done, and they've all said that it requires some repairs. We've never been able to scrape up the money to do it. So the building is either hot or cold or something in between. I think this year we've had the condenser or whatever it is above the so-called gold room leak into the ceiling. Every year. So there's just, the town hall HVAC system needs some attention. I'm not sure if we've ever gotten an estimate to repair it, but it would be, certainly in the thousands of dollars to do something right. There is the computer server that we use in the office downstairs is something of an antique and needs to be replaced. We would like to refurbish the cannon out in front. I didn't know this, but I understand that a couple, at least, of the spokes and the wheels are made out of styrofoam. Yeah. So I'm not encouraging anybody to go there and, poke away at it or anything, but we would like to refurbish that cannon, which is sort of an important element of our, the front area of the town hall building. And then the other somewhat significant issue here is security. We have plain glass everywhere. We don't have any kind of security for the town clerk, the tax collector, or the town office. And the police chief and others who deal in security issues would say that we really need to maybe have bulletproof glass, but certainly have a way to secure those areas so that people can't just get in them simply. I think there are other security things that we're concerned about that probably shouldn't be really publicized, but should be taken care of and will require some funding. So I don't know how long it's been since the town hall was redone. It's 20 years. And it's just time to do some of these repairs and upgrades that we've been neglecting. And then the other, we have a category here called miscellaneous needs. I think, is Karen here? I think Karen Freitas wanted to address some of this because it's within her bailiwick, which is a word I learned somewhere. I don't even really know what it means. Karen, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Well, a couple of years ago, we had discovered, as we were cleaning out our vault, that's where we keep all our vital records, which is our marriages, our births, our death records, as well as the old historical records from when the town was first established. And as we were hauling out, because we had collected many years of all kinds of paper, we discovered in a small box, about that big, our town charter. And when that happened, of course, we got all excited, and I was at the annual town clerks conference in October, and there are several different vendors that are there, and there's always somebody there that does records preservation. And when I told the gentleman from this company, it's called Co-File Preservation Company, and they're out of Vermont, told him what we had discovered, and he had offered he would come into the town, and for no cost at all, he would go through all our records and give me an estimate of what it would be to preserve our records, because they have not literally been touched since 1763. So he came in and very nicely gave us a list of all the records that we should preserve, especially the older records that were in pretty sad condition. And so we have 17 volumes of vital records, which are not available for any kind of grant reimbursement at all. So this is something that we have to do on our own. We can't go to the state for any kind of grants. There's nothing out there for that. So we have 17 volumes of vital records dating, starting with the year 1763 and up to the year 1936, that are in fairly critical need of being preserved. And so we received an estimate, and with this preservation, we would not only preserve the paper records, but we would also do film and CD, scan to CD. This way, not only will we have the paper, but we will have more permanent records also. If we can choose to conserve just the paper, but we cannot choose either film or CDs separately from that. So if we choose to do paper only, that's fine. If we want to do either the film or a CD, we have to do both film and CD. So we received an estimate to do those 17 records. That also includes proprietor records from 1763 to 1774, which is basically a document of our town. You know, people that came and went in our town, actually records of inventory, including, we had one very interesting record, which is kind of unusual for the town of Plymouth, but in 1777, there's an inventory of all cows, sheep, all kinds of property that people owned. And probably much to, not everybody might want to hear about this, but there was one person in the town of Plymouth that owned a slave, which was very unusual for the town of Plymouth, considering we were part of the Underground Railroad. But that's an exciting, it's still an exciting document to have and to preserve, you know.
Was included in the inventory?
That was included in the inventory. It was one male slave that someone owned in the town of Plymouth. Also, there are town records from 1799 up through 1870. Those records show taxes, bills paid, you know, the daily records of how the town functioned. Also, those are our vital records information. We also have an interesting book, Personal War Sketches. This was a history of the men in the area that served in the Civil War. It's in fairly good condition. It's not as bad as some of our other records, but certainly a record we would want to preserve and keep for the future. We also have a Plymouth roll book from 1870 to 1885. The roll book is just, once again, all the men and women that lived in town and men that served in the military. And we have a militia records book also from 1857. So we have a lot of unbelievable documents that we didn't know we had. Were tucked away in a little corner. And that happened when, back 20 years ago, when the building was renovated, all the records were taken out of the building, So we did this renovation, and then they were brought back in, and when they were brought back in, they were just kind of tucked away. And we just discovered all these things a couple of years ago. So we have warrants, we have town meetings, we have results of votes from 1766 to 1812. I mean, the history in that vault is unbelievable, but they're in sad, sad shape, and this might be an opportunity. This is actually, I think this is an exciting thing that we're proposing. Imagine being able to take care of all these things and not wait for years to piecemeal it and.
So was the
not
estimate
lose-
to preserve all of those things you just itemized or listed? And
Yes.
tell us how much.
That is just a little bit under $47,000.
When
But
you
it's
say
an amazing amount of records,
17 volumes of
vital
vital
records.
records, is
And
that?
that's only up to 1936. From 1937 on, those records were put on different type of paper, and they're a little more well-preserved. But eventually, down the road, we'll want to. But they're on different type of paper, different type of ink. They're in binder-type books rather than bound-type books like these other records are.
Okay,
But I
so
mean,
you say
eventually down the
These
road.
are bound books that somebody
Yes.
wrote in.
Yes, big, big,
Yeah.
big books with the leather covers on them
And that's births and deaths?
births,
and
deaths, marriages.
Marriages?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
If those records are lost, there are no other records.
There is not. No, because those records were not sent to the State of New Hampshire Vital Records Department. So this is our history. These are our records. The only way the Division of Vital Records would receive any of this information is if for some reason we had a request, somebody, and it happens quite a bit, people doing genealogy and they're looking for their family history. We can find the original record, we can go in to the Division of Vital Records system and produce a birth certificate or a death certificate or a marriage certificate. And then that record is now kept in the state's database, but the paper record itself is not there. We're the only ones that have these paper records.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really is. It's quite
Should it
interesting.
bother? I
Yes.
think actually the state does have a copy of it, but.
Oh, the older ones?
But what happened was
Oh,
they
okay.
transcribed all the older records on the cards, and the cards are
Oh,
maintained.
cards, okay.
And, you know, so, I mean, if those records are lost, there's still kind of a transcription.
Okay.
But this is the original record that we're talking about
Yes.
here, and we have to preserve it. So,
We did back in about 1952, there were two gentlemen that volunteered their time, and they came in and they hand-typed in these volumes some of these records. So I have them stored in a safe in my office, and when people come in and they're looking, looking for their families, we give them these hand-typed little volumes so that we don't pull out the original records, so they're not constantly being thumbed through. But
they-
even those records are starting to fade
Yeah.
because they were hand-typed like in the 50s, so,
Are the old ones legible?
oh, pretty much,
Yeah.
if you can read the,
Yeah.
but they are, yeah. Yeah, some have faded and they're a little hard to see, but this preservation will also restore them, and we'll be able to hang on to them for a while.
Okay.
And then I also have just a little bit of electrical work. I don't know if many of you know, but the building being what it is, and when the renovation was done, we have very little electrical outlets in our, oh geez, the fire chief's here. I'm not supposed to say I'm running wires across the floor, but we would like to start being able to take credit debit cards in our office, and we need outlets. So I also need some electrical work done in the office so that I can pursue that. I'd like to be able to offer that to our citizens, to be able to do credit debit cards, but I do need electrical work done also to do
All right.
that. And that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Karen.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
And thanks for doing all that work on
Sure.
the preservation stuff. Anything else? Pardon me?
Miscellaneous? Want me to?
Yeah, do you want to hit,
We should have Jules, PB Cam.
can Jules come out and, from her workplace there? Jules is busy sending this out on TV cam. I think one of the things you would like to do, and we would like to do, is upgrade our PV cam system. Can you explain to us what that would entail and what it would produce? How would that help you? What could you do that you can't do now, for example?
I haven't, well, the system we have now it's a playback server. It's just for broadcasting. It's not like a more traditional server, and it's kind of working off 1990s technology, using old file formats from that time period that nobody really uses anymore, called MPEG-2. So we would be able to, it's hard to get into at this point, but there's a lot of file sharing we could do with other stations across the state, and basically it's just, right now we're, transcoding, we're putting up the files to the server now to be broadcast, and then we're also making a different type of file for YouTube, and it takes up a lot of space, this old file format, and also it's getting older. Probably once every 10 years you'd replace it anyway. So eventually it's going to be replaced. And it will have a lot more capabilities, which I don't really want to get into all the details now, but it's just, it's one of the newer systems. And
Well, I'm just wondering, in layman's terms, what difference does it make to the, the casual observer? What can you do? I mean, it sounds like your file format, for example, is incompatible with what is the norm in a lot of places. Does that mean that if you wanted to show I don't know, something that was produced in Concord on a different kind of system, that you couldn't? See, I don't know anything about this, but...
True, you can't, it's not versatile in that respect, but more to the point, like I made a repair on it last year, where I replaced some components, and it's just eventually going to fail anyway. Just, you can hear the fans sort of whining, and it is getting older, so that's mainly the reason why.
How do you like being on this side of the camera? Do you
Yeah, I know.
like it more or
I
less?
don't envy you. I'll put it that way. Yeah.
All right, okay, thank you, Jules.
Would the audio be improved?
Well, we're looking into, with this whole package, improving the audio across the board. Improving the audio in this room will make a big difference, and yes, it probably would be improved a little bit, although it is more digital. Mainly the improvement would come from all the new audio equipment we put in this room. So.
You mean like microphones?
Microphones and a mixer that we have in there that's pretty old, so.
Yeah.
So we have a goal to gain
Hmm?
a better quality that we put out to the public, and to sustain what we currently do. We're not going to be able to sustain what we do at this level that
Right.
much longer. I think we take PB cam off of television today, 15 years after we started. I think a lot of citizens in this town would really miss Channel 3 and Channel 20. And we really haven't put anything into this system since we began it.
Well, I feel like the PV cam system generally allows a lot of people to, if not participate by being here, to watch what's going on, who otherwise don't. I mean, I'm surprised at the number of people who I hear watch this. I think it's pretty popular. And it's a good way for people to keep informed, and I guess the point is to keep the technology sort of up to date. We don't want to be running an antiquated or ineffectual system, and I guess that would sort of be the point of it. All right, well,
Thank you.
thank you, Jules. Appreciate all your work. And that's the end of our list, so...
No, now we're on
Oh.
miscellaneous.
Oh, now we're on miscellaneous. Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, right,
And that's why I didn't do vital records, by the way. I could have never done the vital record part.
right. Karen
Uh,
knows it.
At the Union Cemetery, we have a retaining wall that goes across the entire length of that cemetery that's failing. We've been dealing with it for the last half a dozen years, and we've been pushing it back with the backhoe and stuff like that. The wall needs to be dismantled and the ground taken care of behind it and then put back together again. And that's a significant cemetery. Perpetual care money can't be used for that project, and that needs to be done. Another thing that we want to do is knock off the final payment of the landfill closure. We will be doing one in the regular budget, and we have one more after that. And the good use of this money, part of it should be getting rid of some existing debt at a better rate, and this gives us an opportunity to do that.
So this will take care of that debt. Then the other item we have is the library, I guess, right?
Right, that would be, right, so this would take a $1.4 million note off the table, which is always a nice thing to be able to do when you're gonna put another one on the table. And with that said, there's some clarifications that I would like to give at this time, that though we're calling it a bond meeting, that's just so that we can follow procedures that the state sets forth. It's really gonna be a loan. It's probably gonna be right from a local bank in the town of Plymouth, as we did the library. There are no statutes out there on how to handle loans. It's just a statute out there on the procedures to follow for a bond. So that's what we're required to do tonight, follow those procedures. So it'll be a loan, it won't be a bond. It'll be a low-interest loan. I personally believe, and I think many others believe, that this is our last chance within this window of opportunity where the rates are gonna be as low as they are now. I don't think you're gonna see this opportunity again next year. And it gives us another chance to secure bond money that are bonds, grants, that we can only have money in the bank to prove that we had good intentions to pursue those grants. There is many grants that I can't pursue because I just can't say we're gonna take the highway department's money or the police department's money and get a grant for the recycling center. There are just some grants that you're supposed to have the money to be able to do the whole thing first and then get reimbursed after that. And it's not supposed to be take from Peter to pay Paul or take from Paul to pay Peter. You're supposed to have that in place, and that does that for us too. And the other thing I want to bear mention to is the fact that the regular budget as it stands would go up 50 cents. The loan would allow us to not go up 50 cents and do $2 million worth of other things. And that's what drove me to look into this. It was, how can we, after 8 years of staying level funded, and have every department head need their head to pop up above water at some point without increasing the tax rate?
Well, the proposal you've got is for a 10-year loan of $2 million.
Right.
We would borrow that as we were prepared to spend it, so we wouldn't just take the whole $2 million and start paying interest on it, but the interest would accrue as the loan was drawn down, and it would probably take a year or two to do that, I would think, right?
Yes.
And then we are going to, in your scenario, we would have interest payment or a payback of principal and interest over the course of 10 years, which, if the entire $2 million was drawn down, would be $238,000 a year is the number I think I've heard. And $238,000 would, all other things being equal, put around 50 cents on the tax rate.
Right.
But we are hoping that this will in part give us an opportunity to pursue grants that we would not otherwise be able to pursue, which will give us money that we don't have to pay for. And we also anticipate that there's going to be some growth in our tax base over the next 10 years too that will help alleviate that situation. So we get to make our capital improvements and repairs and our deferred maintenance items now, and then not see any more deterioration in those things that we've fixed that will lead to greater expenses. Hopefully the tax bite will be minimal if we're able to obtain some grants and also see some some increase in our assessed value overall. And I think that's In my mind, at least, that's
No, and
kind
that's
of.
it. And to take advantage of these windows of opportunity, and they don't come along that often. We're lucky that we got 1 and 2 in 5-year period. And to hold a candle to an example, the library 5 years ago when we got the $1.8 million loan, not a bond, we are now making $138,000 payments on that a year. We only have 5 more years to go. Boy, we'd like to have that opportunity again to get $1.8 million at $138,000. It's still a great interest rate out there for us. Look, we're up to 238 now for $2 million. 5 years ago it was 1.8 million for 138. I think we come and visit this 5 years from now, the 238 a year will look like a real.
What is the, do you know, I don't remember knowing what the interest rate is expected to be. Do you remember that?
It's right now, it'll be between 2.3 to 2.6. It's going to depend on when.
So call
we
it
seal
2.5. It's around 2.5.
Meet with the bank again next week to keep up with this. And it's only because the local banks are working with us to try to help the community and give a low interest loans while the opportunity is still here.
That's a fixed rate, right?
Yes, I think so, right? It's a fixed rate.
Yes, it would be a 10-year fixed rate.
So unless any of us have anything else to say, I think we've taken up an hour at least of your time explaining this. And so the purpose of this was to have a public hearing, and I would.
Well, we've had a substantial amount of commercial development out on Tenny Mountain Highway area.
Yep.
And that's going to increase our tax base substantially.
And so now it's time. Bill or anyone else who has any comments or suggestions? Yes, Bill. Thank you for your patience, by the way.
Bear with me if you will. I want to start with what my last question was as a result of this discussion that you just completed. As a bond, you're going into a guaranteed interest rate situation. And bond money, in today's circumstances, the rates are very, very low, not much above the Fed rate. A loan arrangement, like they have with the library, was a fortunate arrangement to pursue in what turned out to be a declining interest environment. We are now at the bottom of the interest cycle. To take a loan in a rising interest cycle, unless there is a guarantee of a fixed rate associated with that loan, that would be a very risky approach to take.
Yeah.
I think that this is guaranteed.
This is a fixed rate loan.
For a 10-year period.
10-year period.
Yep.
And what is the rate that you're contemplating?
The max is 2.5, 2.6, right about.
Okay.
And also, if I may clarify, should Bill, at the time we go, we still are checking the bonds. Whatever one's the best deal is what we're going to go with. But the bank, as they did with the library, are giving us a fixed rate for 10 years. There will be no increase on the rate.
Well, certainly with a guarantee, that's protection for the town, and we absolutely have to have that. I won't say anything more to that. I presume whether it's a loan or a bond, as far as town meeting and how it's handled and the vote pertaining thereto is one and the same.
Yeah, I think the concept is the same regardless of what we call it, yeah.
Okay, I'll go back to Joe's highway budget, if I may.
Yes, sir.
And ask a few questions here. First of all, I think that Joe has got the absolute right idea, working from the ground up and correcting some of these subsurface drainage issues, culverts and swales, etc. That's the first thing you want to do before you consider any road pavement improvements, whether it's shimming, overlaying completely, or grinding and laying down new pavement. So you're right on, Joe, in what you're doing. I highly support you in that. The thing that I have some concerns about, and I'd like the board's opinion, Highland Street, Phase 2, which has been put off and put off and put off. I know you did some borings up there about a month and a half ago, and I understand the reasons for doing that. But I don't see Highland Street mentioned in any of this bonding or loan arrangement that you're discussing. Can you tell me where that stands in the eyes of the board?
Yes, well, go ahead.
It's in progress right now, Bill. Joe's actually been working with town's engineer. He's putting together the final design of which would be phase 2, because we skipped over phase 2. We have almost $500,000 for that project already in capital reserves. Also, we're back in the queue with North Country Council with the possibility in 2 years of that becoming available for them to finance it versus the town having to finance it. But right now, as we speak, Joe is working with the town engineer to do, Mike Ficknelli, to do all the design work for phase 2.
Well, as you all
And the
know-
leftover money would go towards the match that we would need to do phase 2 of Highland Street.
As you all know, that road is in the most terrible condition that it's been in a long time. And the volume of traffic over Highland Street is increasing in number. I'm sure, Steve, if they've got recent traffic counts on that roadway, are higher than they've ever been. And they're going to continue to grow with the growth of the town. So that road should be done sooner than later. It should be well up on the priority list.
I think we agree with you, and I think we've basically, the money for that is largely set aside. And it's not part of this discussion for that reason.
And also from further clarification, at last year's town meeting, Bill, the selectmen were made agents of that capital reserve fund, so they don't even have to go to a meeting to be able to kick in Highland Street. They can start Highland Street at any time. They were given the spending agents authority at last year's town meeting.
I recall that.
And that's when we started it, and that's why we've got Joe already working on it.
May Joe,
Money to draw from.
Right.
And that's what my concern is.
Right.
yeah, Joe would like to,
So, Bill, I'll just give you a little update, working with the engineer on that. Since I've been brought on board, there's some issues there that weren't really looked at before. Like there's a huge culvert at the bottom by Broadway, and there's some issues with that culvert. Plus, we're trying to look at the possibility of widening that right there where the sidewalk is. So that all takes time, so we're looking at some safety issues, plus how to address, that culvert is not a small culvert. So we're looking at ideas on how to address that without, going over the budget, you want to say, but we are trying to get a forward motion with that.
Is that Mike Fignali that you're working with?
Correct.
So our hope, Bill, is by the time we handle these issues that Joe just brought up, that Sharon and I, who are working with us with North Country Council, that will come out of the queue and luckily maybe be able to do this at somebody else's expense, as we did phase 1.
Okay. Bell Road, when I saw that on this listing, and I realize you're looking for a funding source to offset most of the costs that you associate with that roadway. But that's only a 2-rod right-of-way, Bell Road. I don't know whether y'all realize that or not. The planning board, when developers came forward to subdivide properties along that road, were forewarned that that was a 2-rod road and that any future improvements to that road to make it a standard width roadway would encroach upon their properties, and they would likely have to pay part of the burden of making those kinds of improvements. That's probably long been lost in the scheme of things, because those developers were before the planning board quite some number of years ago. But that is a problem that Joe has to face, and
Again, I met with that engineer too, which is a different one. And as far as the width of the road, we're not changing that. It's the drainage, we're upgrading all the culverts. We have a lot of undersized culverts. And there's just a lot of drainage that we're trying to get so the water stays where it belongs. And the only major thing is the culvert on the far end, like gate. We're gonna take that out and put a box culvert. But that's all engineered, and that's really not any more wider. And on top of that, we'll put a guardrail here, because that's a safety issue.
I just wanted to ask Steve if they have traffic counts on Bell Road.
We don't have any updated traffic counts on Bell Road now.
And to go along with what Joe was saying, Bill, I've been to DC. We've already secured one grant for Bell Road to do phase 1, which comes off at 810 feet, and it includes the culvert that Joe mentioned. And I went for phase 2, and that's well on its way to almost being approved as we sit here. Again, for phase 2, we'll need the match, and that match is included.
And what does phase 2 entail?
Phase 2 would be the rest of Bell Road, from 810 feet to however long it is to get to Reservoir. And again, it's the infrastructure, it's not the water, it's the drainage that continues to wash away Bell Road. It's that steep hill, taking care of that problem there. We lose that. We can lose that on a drizzly day. It doesn't take much rain to lose that. So those kind of issues will be addressed. And that's, I believe, together in $500,000 in money that we're able to get. And that's why Bell Road's included on that list.
Okay. And that doesn't include any pavement?
No, I can't get federal money for paving. I can get paving money, which is a separate grant that I pursued down in DC, but that has to include multi-roads, as I did, what was Merrill Street, Joe, 6 years ago? We were able to get $400,000 in paving, asphalt, and that has to be throughout the town.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
But we can't get federal grant money to pave a road, or else we'd be pursuing the in-town roads the same way. This grant money that I'm getting, by the way, is mitigation money, and that's why you can't mitigate asphalt. So we can do the gravel roads.
And last question relative to highway. About 10 years ago, the subdivision that I live in was on a fairly high priority list in the highway scheme of things to do some repair work on that road to protect its integrity beyond the normal 25-year life of the roadway. Those improvements never materialized. The road, compared to Ledgeside Lane, is much older, but it's in much better shape than what Ledgeside Lane is in. However, it has deteriorated to the point now where a good part of that may have to be ground and replaced as opposed to shimmed and repaired. And that road was completed in 1987, so it's going on 30 years beyond its normal 25-year cyclic life. So that should be somewhere fairly high on the highways.
It's not on the top of the list, but I'm very well aware of its condition, so yeah, we're working in that direction, but we haven't quite got there.
Well, the ditch work that you did was a good start on the entrance apron. That was long needed, and it's going to be very helpful. but there's much more to be done, or you're gonna lose that roadway, Ash Hill and cross country completely.
Yeah, well, that relates to this whole thing, though. We're kind of trying to jumpstart things so we can catch up a little bit, and then,
The wish list for highway is actually over $6 million.
yeah.
It's,
Well, let me just say in summary, relative to this
Yes.
loan or bond, I think it's a good thing that you're doing, and in general, I support it. I am a little concerned about some of the lesser items that are identified within the scheme of things. I think money of that proportion should be used for infrastructure type, long-lived investment, not anything that has a short life investment. Because we've got a capital plan, and that was instituted as a pay-as-you-go planning document to try and avoid, level out the playing field over a long period of time. And you're not abandoning that. I see that it's being preserved, and it's absolutely essential that we do preserve that and look forward beyond the bond to see what our needs are that fall within capital planning criteria.
Okay.
I've said enough on this. We'll move on. I'll let others.
Thank you very much, Bill. Did you want to say something, Paul?
No, I agree with Bill. And
Yeah.
I believe this is our attempt at doing exactly what Bill said.
Right.
We can't do it all at one time. It is to jumpstart it, as you just said. And it's to give a fair chance for every department head to pop up above water. We haven't been able to do that for 8 years.
Yeah.
I commend all the departments for not allowing austerity to set in. I think we've kept the services going.
Yep. Other, Mrs. Scarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to stand up here just so that everybody can hear me. I think those who have been at town meeting for the last few years have heard me say every year we can't stay level funded forever. There is infrastructure in the town that needs attention. And I think that this loan is going to address the issues that have been put on the back burner for a number of years, both because of the economy, because of the slowdown in growth on Tenny Mountain Highway, and now with the economy doing better, things starting to grow on Tenny Mountain Highway, I think the town is in a great position, and I think that the interest rate that is being made available to the town is just tremendous. I think the time is right, and I certainly hope that the rest of the town will support this when the time comes to vote for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your input. Anyone else want to say anything?
There's nobody else.
Well,
No, it's Frank.
yeah, Frank
Mr.
is here.
Sorry, Frank, didn't see you.
I believe this is a good time to have the people of town of Plymouth to reinvest in themselves. This is a good start. A lot of good things that I see on the list of all the departments, and I've known they've kicked the can down the road here for several years. And I believe, all things considered, on the administration and the financing, the timeliness of it, I believe this is the best investment of that we can do for our own town. So I definitely am supporting it.
Thank you, Frank. Would have called on you earlier if I had known what you were going to say. All right. Oh, yes, Mr. Hull.
I got a couple of other questions. I've got a question for the casino in particular. In terms of the fire department and the property acquisition you've made and the concept of building out another station where your current offices and room, general purpose room is located. None of this money seems to address opening up a new bay where your offices and that room behind it is located. Now, my earlier understanding from prior discussions about changes that could be made to the station, the thought was to move the ambulances into a new bay in that location and use the ambulance bay for a fire truck Is that still in play?
There was, once we got into the house, and once ADA requirements, to bring that, to move all the administration up there, came into play, the figures that were coming in were astronomical, not to mention the fact that we don't know what is underneath the floor of it. So when that happened, we made the determination, looking at it, that, okay, myself and the administrative assistant needs to stay right where they're at because of the parking, ramps, accessibility and all that. So so that thought, yes, is gone. We're not gonna be able to do that. If we wanna add on, then the figure we got was another huge chunk of money. It just didn't make any sense at that point in time.
You couldn't put an addition on the existing station to the rear?
There's no room to the rear. You
Not
get
to
6
the-
feet and you drop off.
Not to the rear of the building, but to the side of the building, adjacent to the existing east side, towards the back, where you could have offices and ADA compliant.
That was never a thought. Thought was if all the administration moved out of currently where we're at and into the house, then that was a quick thought.
Well, again, the house was intended to make accommodation for your firefighters that are on duty
There is a current.
in a much more accommodating arrangement than what they had to live with before. And certainly that was a good step to have taken. But it seems to me, as opposed to the administration, and you feel the need to do it in the location where you're at, a small addition on the east side to accommodate your offices, maybe a toilet facility for the public, which is ADA compliant, because it's on grade, that would be a logical alternative to pursue. Not to try and wrap the administration over in the other building where it doesn't really need to be.
Yeah, the other issue that casinos brought up, and I don't think this has really been investigated fully, but I think he's got some concern about what's underneath the slab on that side of the building, whether it's sound enough to hold vehicles, and it would have to be, I guess it would have to be checked. But so he raises a good issue, though. What about that? I mean...
It definitely we could use if things align with what we found out. Every time we take a step forward, we find another huge money. There's something I could definitely look into.
Well, it would certainly be another costly item, and it wouldn't be something that we could do with this. I mean, that would be a few $100,000 at least, I'm sure, in addition and redoing that bay and everything.
Not that kind of money.
Well, I don't know, but it would be a considerable sum. Well,
That's my thought.
yeah, I think it's a good thought, and it's one that we've had before. One of the issues I think would be checking the the underside, what that's built on over there, right? Whether it's sound.
What's the weight of your ambulances?
The one currently I have.
Yeah.
I don't have the figure off the top of my head. It's a one-ton truck.
Well,
12,000 probably.
No, the weight.
12,000.
The weight of it.
Which also could cut.
Probably around
Neil
12,000.
says 12,000 pounds.
12,000.
There's a lot of other.
The equipment and everything else that go, yeah.
Yeah, I would have thought an ambulance would probably be in the 8,000 to 9,000 pound category.
I know it's more than that.
But it's certainly, your point is well taken, and I think it's something we
For
should
my SUV, so.
Well, we have had
look into.
discussions about that.
Yeah, we have.
Yep.
That is not.
And we are discussing it, Bill.
The other question I wanted to raise to Larry on the park priorities here. They've taken down the old toilet facilities that were at Fox Park.
Yes.
Those were removed, they were inoperative, the field that they were serviced to was failed and so forth. Made a lot of nice improvements to the park, but we haven't built a facility for users of the park to go to a toilet. They have to leave to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the understanding, again, back when the improvements were made and that building was going to be torn down, that there would be a replacement building constructed in the reasonably near term to provide facilities for users of the park.
Mhm.
And I ask where that stands.
I don't know. Larry, can you address that?
We have looked at that, and there are facilities there. Unfortunately, they're porta-johns. We have seasonal porta-johns over there, so it's not like the public can go over there and then have to go home and go to the bathroom. I mean, that's something we can certainly look at. It's something that if I'm allowed to use this maybe bond money with, that could be an addition, but the commission felt that they were satisfied just with the porta-johns versus putting in a building, supplying it with water, the vandalism. It was more simpler just to have the porta-johns come in and out of that facility. So,
Well,
but it's something we can look at. I mean, there's growth. I mean, we're looking at it. We're looking at a ball field. We've just improved the walking trails and bike trails, and eventually, yes, the more and more people that use that facility, there should be a bathroom facility. So I mean, I think we can look at it.
The challenge that I would put in relation to that is that you could make use of city water and city sewer, depending on where you sited the building.
Yeah, I think we looked at it at its current spot, and we had to go all the way up to just the top of Langdon Street where the stop sign is before you turn right on the Texas Hill Road. I thought that was where the water line or sewer line was. But, I mean, we looked at it several years ago. I'd have to readdress it.
Because Prince Haven Drive does have water and sewer. And your parking lot is at the same elevation as Prince Haven Drive.
Yeah, that's a good point. Paul, did you?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just to give the public some more information, $2 million seems to be that magic number that we go to and the tax rate doesn't go up. It offsets the regular budget, which is why the regular budget's up around 50 cents. And that's with nothing being done. The $2 million helps offset that 50 cents, plus gets this list of things done, up to $2 million worth of stuff done. Well, we could go for a $3 million bond or a $4 million bond, but the tax rate goes up with that. As we start getting into these other projects, it's the $2 million that includes enough to offset our regular budget, so that with the amount of revenue we bring into this town at this point of today, which could change next year. I mean, we've got people out on Tenny Mountain Highway, like Mid-State, for instance, that wants to be tax exempt. That's $65,000 in revenue lost. That would impact this budget. It's $2 million where we don't increase in taxes at today's revenue that we now take in.
Yeah. Yeah, but Bill's points are, well, those are both good suggestions
No,
to
they are.
think about.
It's,
This will be the second March meeting where we put $5,000 in an account for Fox Pond Park. We've only had $500 to maintain the facilities. So we currently have $5,000 sitting there now. Hopefully at the March meeting we'll have another $5,000, so that ups it to 10. So if we can just keep building that kitty a little bit, then there is money.
So this is one of our new capital reserve lines. So it's part of our investment in the capital reserve.
Neil?
I think Bill's point regarding the facilities at Fox Park is extremely important. And I think we might be able to find another way to do this. We might be able to find another way to get these facilities without infringing on this plan that we have right now.
You mean like donations or something?
Yeah, there might be something.
Well,
or
I'm going to put you chair of the committee.
Underline that on the minutes.
Yeah,
Is your name on that donation, Neil?
sounded like he was about to write a check.
I think so. Don't let him leave.
I built a solar-powered water and septic system for the National Forest Service up at the Hancock Campground in the Kankomagas. They had no power or anything up there, and it's been going strong for 20 years. They got 66 campsites on it.
All right, other comments, or, Bill?
Make one last comment.
Yes, sir.
You gentlemen all speak very softly, as though you were at the dinner table talking to one another. The microphones don't do a darn thing for you. I'm a frequent viewer on Channel 3 of this meeting and other meetings. The video is great. The cams capture everything, but we can't hear what's being discussed at the table. And I venture to tell you tonight that probably those behind me had very little understanding of what was being said up front,
You mean people in the room?
in the room.
Okay.
I'm sitting here, I have hearing aids, I got, in my old age, some fairly good hearing at this point, and I could barely discern some of the conversation. So I'm telling you, as a body, speak up, speak to the public, and use your microphones. And if these aren't any good, then upgrade these before the cameras.
Okay.
That's one reason why we're going for more money.
Yeah, and Bill, occasionally I found that some comments that I make that are very quiet are picked up by the microphones, unfortunately. So, but yeah, hopefully the microphones will be improved. And I'll try to speak up.
All right, anybody else? If not, I will close the public hearing. Well, and I think we're at the end of our agenda. huh?
Yes, we are.
Yep.
So I would entertain a motion to adjourn
Move to adjourn.
by
Second.
Bill, second by Neil. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.